You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome to the Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network. EJ Hradek here, and we got something special for you today. We got Scarborough's own Kevin Weeks, longtime NHL netminder, president of the goalie union. Apparently, he cannot be voted out under any circumstances, so he remains president, and also a terrific broadcaster. He's been doing that for 16, 17 years now, I think it is. And I have the good fortune of working with Kevin quite a bit at the NHL Network. And also, we've been calling the Stanley Cup Final on the NHL International feed. We've done that the last 6 years. Been an absolute pleasure. Proud to call him a friend. And so, Kevin, thanks for being on today. It's a good day. We're going to talk a little Leafs, talk a little free agency, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Cup Final. But let's start with the Leafs. What you grew up in that. You grew up with that chaos around you. What do you make of these next couple of weeks with Marner, Tavares, the team looking to make changes? Let's start with Marner. What do you think is happening there?
Thanks for the kind intro, Ej. Always great to be with you, man, and a pleasure working with you, and great to have you as a friend. So thank you for that. As we talk about the Leafs, how much time do we have? Like, how much can we delve into this? Because I just heard you say the Leafs, and all of a sudden now I feel like I'm getting pings on my phone from Brampton and Smile, Scarborough, and East York, and the whole deal. But anyway, let me get a sip. Hold on, let me get a
There you go. Have a little sip.
All right, let me just reset the vocal cords for this. What do I think's happening with Marner? Okay, what do I think is happening? I ultimately think that Mitch Marner is going to get to the market. He's a Toronto kid. He's born and raised. He's one of the many kids that have been produced from playing youth hockey in Toronto. It's the best youth hockey system in the world. He was great in London in the OHL. He's been an excellent Toronto Maple Leaf. I think at this point, all indications from what I'm told, barring anything unforeseen, are that he will test the market. Yeah. I've known his agent, Darren Ferris, for a long time, since I was a young kid back in Toronto. Mitch has earned the right to go to market to see what his value is and to explore what his choices are. But funny that you ask about him. 2 nights ago in conversation at dinner with a couple of good friends, one being the great Henrik Lundqvist and the other one being Keith Yandel.
Okay.
We were all kind of exchanging intel, and we're of the thought that as of now, the front runner for Mitch Marner are the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh, okay.
As of now. All of that could change, but I just think he wants a change of scenery, a change of environment. As mentioned, he's from Toronto. He lived the childhood dream. He played there. He's performed there. But by going to market, he can explore what his options look like and probably explore playing in a different market. And if my sources are correct, I don't necessarily think that will be in the Eastern Conference if it's not for Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, we've been hearing maybe LA will be in the mix. That would seem like it would make sense. They have some centermen there. They got a new GM, Kenny Hall, and they want to spend money. Anaheim has got all those good young players. They seem like they're in the mix to try to do something. It seems like that area, Vegas, LA, Anaheim, are 3 places that make sense. I can tell you this, talking to people around the league 2 weeks, and I know you have a million sources, and I've heard the Utah Hockey Club has got money to burn, and they'll spend upwards of $100 million on Mitch Marner, which would be 7 times what, 13, 14 million. The question is, would Mitch Marner want to go and play in Utah? So who knows? But that would be a lot of cream, as you like to say. That'd be a lot of cream. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of seats. Well, here's the other part to that too, Ej. I was going to piggyback your points. I love that you mentioned Utah. I had them on the tip of my tongue, and you're exactly right. I've heard likewise. Could he also go to a team like Chicago? Could he go to a team like San Jose? Either one of those teams early in their rebuild, although it feels like a perpetual rebuild, both relatively early in the rebuild. Could they entice Mitch Marner? They certainly have the money to be able to do it. But then the question for Mitch Marner is, does he want to play in a team that's early in a rebuild? Or does he want to be on a contender in Vegas? Or do you want to be on a team that's kind of knocking on the door, a bubble team like Utah, for example? So, and you mentioned LA. I think LA's done a really good job these last couple of years too.
Yeah, no question about it. You mentioned Darren Ferris, his agent, and he also
Mm-hmm.
has Sam Bennett. He has a number
Yep.
of hprofile of clients. What can you tell? What can you tell the people, the viewers about Darren Ferris? What kind of cat is this guy?
I've known Darren a long time. I used to shop at
Yeah.
his parents' nutrition store when I was a little skinny
Okay.
weakling,
All right.
like Popeye, just trying to get some pipe cleaners back in the day. So
Yeah.
so we go way back to then. But he's worked exceptionally hard. He was
Yeah.
one of those guys and still remains one of those guys. I talk about the hockey scene, the youth hockey scene / minor hockey scene. He was on the scene in Toronto. You'd see him at rinks a lot. And another guy who was a part of his group, Paul Capizano. Like there are a lot of those guys that were at the rinks all the time.
Yeah.
And they were there. You'd look up, they were there. Sometimes you'd see them at practice. They were working it. They were working connections. They were working relationships. And that's, you and I often talk about this. You've been in the game a long time. We often talk about the grassroots. These are among the people that are at the grassroots. And through the time, went on to work with Bobby Orr, as you know, and they were
Yeah.
part of that agency. And since then, they've kind of transitioned. But Darren's philosophy quite often, not always, but quite often, as you just alluded to, with his UFAs, perhaps like Sam Bennett, who we've been saying on the NHL International broadcast,
Yeah.
we can hear the money trucks, the Brinks truck.
Yep.
We can hear it.
Yeah.
He's got 14 goals so far. He's
Yeah.
having a tremendous postseason. Marner is, and just touching on the philosophy of Darren Ferris, it's often get to market.
Mm-hmm.
Get to market. If you
Yeah.
want to re-sign with your home club, your original club, fine. But you don't really know what your options are until you get to market as a UFA, and that's always been his kind of his mantra to his clients. And I know him and I have had some of those discussions as well. So that's kind of an overview on Darren Ferris.
Do you see a scenario in which Marner stays in Toronto?
I don't think anything's off the table. I think it's more unlikely that he resigns
Yeah.
back in TL, just given the way that things ended and just a lot of the kind of the disappointment in the market, the disappointment from the Leafs not being able to get to the next level. And as you know, Ej, you've been around this game, you've been around the league a long time, covering it, working in it. Sometimes those things just become too much to bear.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, when you've earned the right to explore what the market looks like, then at least you go through that process. The bird in the hand is, again, you're a Toronto kid. You wear the blue and white. You play in front of the fans. You know what that's like. Your parents are at the games. Your wife, your siblings, your boys that you were, that you were in the cafeteria with or you played street hockey with, they're there. However, that's a known commodity. The unknown is, how do I explore the Utah opportunity? How can I explore what it could be like playing in Vegas? How can I explore what San Jose has to offer with their good young core? Or Anaheim, which you pointed out.
Yeah.
And now Coach Quenneville, Q, re-entering the league, he'll be behind the bench there. There are a lot of different factors. So I think for him, he's going to explore the market. But if I'm hedging, I don't anticipate him going back to TL, barring anything unforeseen.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, just based on all the things we've heard. But I never like to rule anything out, because until something is done, it's done. It's not done. So that's
right.
And the Leafs still have the negotiating rights to Marner right up until July 1st. So
exactly, and that 8th year.
That's right. Exactly
and
right.
That 8th year.
Yeah. I mean, so it's going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, I'm like you. I think he's going to leave, but we'll see where it goes. Now, what happens with Tavares? Now, remember, it was 7 years ago. Tavares, he had the pajamas on. He was excited, and he had a good run. He's been a good player for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but a little older now. There's more cap money in the system. We can say all the nice things, right? That he loves being in Toronto, and that whole story. And he's been a good Leaf. But the bottom line is, if they're looking to get him on a budget deal, and he goes to market, there are going to be teams that'll likely look what Brock Nelson just got 7.5, 7.25. There will be teams that will ante up for a guy like Tavares. What do you make of his circumstance?
Yeah, I think he too is a unique situation because, Mitch Marner, Tavares is a Toronto area guy from Oakville. Lived the dream, always aspired to play for the Leafs after coming over from the Islanders. Has had his 7 years there, done his time. So the question becomes, similarly, but in a unique way, what does he want? Like, does
Yeah.
he want to continue playing, living, being at home and being a Leaf? Does he want to go to another team that's a contender that may have a better shot at going deeper in the postseason? Like, I know the Carolina Hurricanes are a really fast, quick team that play that up-tempo game, but they're a little further along, / lot further along to me than the Leafs are right now. Does he go to Carolina? Just looking at a squad. It's still on the East Coast. You know, the Rantanen didn't work out the way they wanted. They've had to recover and keep moving. But John Tavares is somebody that they could try acquiring, and you don't have to give up an asset necessarily to get, per se. But not limited to Carolina, just a team that I thought I'd mention. But I don't know that I don't know that it's as clear cut a case. I think there's more of a chance he could stay in Toronto than there is for Marner. But you're right. The market equally so will be very rich to John Tavares should he get to the marketplace from a lot of the people that I've spoken to around the league.
Yeah, I mean, again, we just saw what Brock Nelson did. So that's like a second center, kind of similar in name, but similar age. And, you know, you could make a case John Tavares could be worth more than Brock Nelson based on the season he had this year. It was really good. I didn't think he performed very well in the series against Florida when they really needed that. But, I mean, the Florida Panthers, as we're seeing, they're hard to deal with. I mean, you know, that's the funny thing about all this. You know, the Leaf fans were sour. They lost to Florida. They had those two really bad home losses, right, that were ugly, that people remember. Well, how do you think the Oiler fans are going to feel about that loss last night? And, you know, on whatever it was on Monday night. I mean, that was ugly. So, I mean, they've done this to everybody. They did it to Carolina. They did it to Tampa. I mean, that's just the Florida Panthers. They're really, really a good team. You know, speaking of them, right, Bennett and Marchand and even Ekblad, right? Any chance of the Leafs getting in on them? I'm hearing Bennett staying in Florida. That would make sense. Marchand, he might have wrote a new ticket to Florida with the way he's played in the postseason. And Aaron Ekblad, he's somebody that could be expendable for them because they've now added Seth Jones. What do you make of those three players? Any of those guys, maybe? I'm sure the Leafs would love Sam Bennett.
I'm looking for something in my bag here that I want to pull out a little.
You're always looking for props. You always got props.
Prop for the viewers. Yeah. This is what I'd be doing if I were the Leafs. Cold hard cash. Not throwing at them so quick. They wouldn't even know what. They wouldn't even know. It'd just be like an avalanche of cash that I throw at those guys. Let me tell you, see, you got me wound up now today.
I know, I do.
I said this early in the year on TSN. It would have been February. I was doing it from the house in Jersey. I said, I don't see a world where the Toronto Maple Leafs should not be in Brad Marchand for the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Now let's just compound that. Oh, he's from New Brunswick. Okay. His parents are Leafs fans. Okay. Yep. He grew up as a Leaf fan. Like all the things are there, which is why I was saying at the time, get in. But you know who was stalking in a little night hunt in the tall grass and the Everglades? The Panthers.
Yes.
The Panthers, to their credit, they went out and acquired him. So how about this? Brad Marchand in his career has the second most points against the Toronto Maple Leafs in history. Playoff points. Yeah. And he's vanquished them before this season 4 times.
Yeah.
And now this season, he vanquished them again.
Yeah.
So I would, to answer you, I would, if I were the Leafs, be in on all of those guys.
Yeah.
They've all been difference makers in their own way. They all bring a little something different to the table. And here's the biggest thing for me. And we talked about this on our broadcast during the Stanley Cup Final, you and I. Like Aaron Ekblad. I just talked to Bundy, longtime NHLer, Warren Reichel.
Warren Reichel, our guy.
Still in scout. Our guy, Warren Reichel, who was also part owner of Windsor when they won the Memorial Cup with the Windsor Spitfires. Does a great job as a scout, longtime player. I just talked to him yesterday. I said, I know that Aaron Ekblad's from your neck of the woods, the Windsor area. You've known him way longer than me, but son, he looks like he's in the UFC. He's forearming guys. He's gapping up the big hits on McDavid.
Yeah.
He's physical. It's been impressive to watch.
Yeah.
So, if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs, anyone or all of those three, they bring the style of game that's required to run for the Roses. to run for the big races. They're not show ponies. These guys are there for the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
They're there for when it matters. And any one of those would be a huge addition for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they should be in on them.
All right.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll ask you about the Leafs is, like I thought they made a lot of strides this year. And in the end, if Florida wins the Stanley Cup, Florida goes and finishes off the Oilers, I mean, we may look back and say, hey, the hardest series that the Panthers ended up having was against Toronto. And so, Toronto had them down in game 3, just couldn't finish them off there. And then, things kind of, didn't work out. They ended up losing in 7 games and having those 2 bad ones at home. But anything else you see for the Leafs possibly? I mean, because that pot's going to be stirring because there's more money in the system. Anybody else out there that comes to mind that could help this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that the Leafs need before we get to that is keeping all really good viable options on the table.
Yeah.
For years, it had just been locked in the core 4, the core 4, the core 4, the core 4, the core 4. And all my conversations with anybody in the organization was always about the core 4, the core 4.
Yep.
I of the mindset, and I've said this to some of the Leafs management in years past and coaches. Ultimately, who are the pieces that you can add to this group? So if you think of a winning team, do you go after a Lundell? Do you go after a Luosterainen from Florida? Just as an example, not limited to. Do you go after the type of players that that are proven in the postseason, whether by trade, whether via free agency, what have you? But the mix of the team, to me, needs to be very different than what it has been for the last 11 years. And with that, every option should be on the table. If I'm them, I look at everything. To me, I don't think there should be any untouchable, including the great Austin Matthews. I don't think there should be any untouchable for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm looking at their group and maybe more of as opposed to the names, we named some, obviously those guys from Florida, but more stylistically, bringing guys that are warriors. Mm-hmm. And not everybody's going to score 69 like Austin Matthews, but you don't need that. You need somebody that when the bright lights come on, they're ready to deliver in their role, respectively. Yeah. And to your point, they made some good ads. Like Chris Tanev was a very good ad for them. Yeah. That Simone Benoit, very good ad for them.
Yeah.
McCarlo, very, very good ad. Like some of those are good ads for them, but they need to add more of that element to their group so that they have guys that can play in the postseason.
Matthew Nyes, I mean, he's been really good for them. He's a draft pick. What's he going to get? What's he going to get, Weeksy? What's the number? 8 million, 8.5. Depends on the term.
I think it's term dependent. Does he try an Austin Matthews 5-year special? Does he does he go for the max? If he goes for the max, it can't have anything less than an 8 on it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It cannot have
I would
anything
agree because he's a high-end young player. Yeah. And if he's going to give away unrestricted years on the back end, he's going to have to get paid for that. So I'll be curious to see how that one plays out. All right, let's get to the Cup Final quick before I let you get back into the world with throwing your cash at everybody. I love that, by the way. The Stanley Cup Final. I mean, we started. I thought the Oilers were primed to get it done this year. I mean, they were bitter.
Me
they
too.
were right to the end. They were playing so well. They beat the Dallas Stars like a drum. They beat the wheels off them, and they won Game 1. And they got in overtime in Game 2, ended up losing Brad Marchand, and then they just get their,
yes,
they were the Dallas. They were on the other side of that beat down against the Florida Panthers in Game 3. So now they have to figure out a way to rebound. But maybe we just underestimate Florida. Maybe they're just too good.
That's fair. The Florida coming into the Stanley Cup Final, it'd be very easy for me to say the Florida Panthers are going to win for obvious reasons. It's resetting my shot for obvious reasons, just based on their team, based on the playoff experience, based on the infusion of new guys, Brad Marchand, Seth Jones, some of the other guys that are in the group, and the hunger that these guys have, especially for those guys to win one or win another one in Marchand's case. But they bring the game into different areas. And if you're familiar with South Florida, Florida, really, there's a lot of swamp. And they bring the game into the swamp. And you know what lies in there? The predators, the apex predators, the alligators. That's what they bring. They bring the game there.
Yeah.
And they thrive there.
Yeah.
They thrive when the game is there. They're very comfortable playing the game any way you want it, Eej. You know this.
Yep.
Off the rush, no problem. Cycle game, cool, no problem. You want us to drop the gloves? We could do that too. You want us to play a responsible lockdown defensive style? Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Nothing phases them. And I think for the Edmonton Oilers, and you and I talked about this yesterday off the top of our show. And prior to coming in the booth with you, I said this on ESPN as well. The Oilers needed to stay out of the box, manage the puck, and play a good road game.
Yeah.
That's that. And I know for a fact that's what they were telling the group internally, not just us saying it. That's what they were telling the group. And they went out and did the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Inexplicably, they went out and did the exact opposite of that. And they got absolutely rolled up last night. They were dominated, as your guy Craig Button said. They were absolutely destroyed and dominated. So all that to say, I'm very curious to see how they come out in game 4 on Thursday.
All right, you're the goalie. You going back to Skinner?
Depends on my meal tonight. I just had a little bit of sushi with my buddy. Depends on my meal. If I'm Coach Knobloch, it depends on the meal tonight because I got to take tonight to think about it.
Yeah.
You're asking, as of right now, I would go to Pickard for the next game.
Really? You're gonna push aside Mr. Game 4.
Yeah, I love Mr.
Stu
Game
Skinner,
4.
Mr. Game 4.
He's been amazing. He's been amazing in Game 4s. And this isn't as much of a clear case as Bobrovsky's net all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no
because
question.
At the other end of that, Pickard's 6-0.
Yeah, he is.
Pickard's 6-0 at the other end of that. So do we go back to Stu? We just got rocked last game. Or do we say, okay, Skinny, you know what? We're going to give you a game. We're going to get picks in there, and we'll see where it goes from there. I would tend to maybe go back just because they're not a one goalie solution team.
Yeah, that's true.
But the key to any of all that, whatever decision the coach makes, and we've seen this, unfortunately, Pete DeBoer rather is just the most recent example.
Yeah.
But Eej, we talk about this all the time. It's the people piece and how you handle that, the communication.
Yeah.
So whatever you decide, because Pickard, and I've been in both shoes.
Yeah.
Like Pickard's now thinking, all right, well, man, there's a good chance I could play. Skinner is thinking, okay, I just got pulled in relief. There's a good chance I could play. So whatever decision you make, and this is a cautionary tale and a little bit of a free teaching moment for some of our viewers who may be coaching or in management roles in any capacity of business and sports. Yeah. It's extremely essential to make sure that you manage the relationship, have a respectful conversation, have one that's honest, that's real, but very respectful. And that way you can avoid what happened with the Dallas Stars with Pete DeBoer and Jake Ottinger, because that ended up costing him his job there.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And Pete's a really good coach. And we've known Pete a long time. He's a good coach, but that just goes to show you how critical good communication is with your players and your staff, quite frankly, and especially your position in goal. That's absolutely essential.
All right, last thing, Weeksy, before I let you go. No problem. Any chance for the Oilers? I mean, it's only 2-1, right? I mean, we're always driven by the narrative, and it was just such an ugly-looking loss. I mean, for sure. I mean, remember last year, the Oilers won Game 4 8-1, and it went to 7 games, and then Florida found a way to win the 7th game. So I'll just ask, where do you feel the level of concern is? Can the Oilers still get this done?
Can they still get it done? Yes. Can they? Yes. My level of concern is this. And for the listeners, I know you guys have listeners both down here in the U.S. and in Canada. I'm sure you probably have some international that are going to tune in too. The thing for me, and a lot of people aren't going to want to hear me say this, but I have to say what's real. The thing for me is when it comes to the big spots for Canadian NHL teams.
Yeah.
Not for Team Canada. No. Not for Team Canada World Junior. World Cup of
Yeah.
Hockey, Four Nations, for the National Hockey League,
Yeah.
in the
Franchise.
National. When it comes down to the big spots, they've been coming up short.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's 32 years. I just told
Yeah.
the young draft eligible guys, Mike Misa and these guys yesterday, and Hagens and them, I was drafted 32 years ago.
That's right. By the Florida Panthers.
By the Florida Panthers. And that's the last time an NHL team from Canada won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
The Montreal Canadiens against Wayne Gretzky's LA Kings.
LA
So
Kings.
all that to say, can they get it done? Yes. But yesterday was concerning for me for the same reason I just said to you in the audience. When the games come up big, they came up light.
Yeah.
Ej, how many times the
Can't
fans
argue
would
with you.
Ej, how many times did you say to me yesterday, hold on, wait, no shot attempts for Drysdale?
Yeah. Amazing. Zero.
No, he's too good for that. Like, how's that possible?
Yeah.
Like, Leon and Connor are so good, and they have been so good, and they're so great that it was odd to watch yesterday. So, can they rebound? Yes. But that's been my thing with the Canadian teams. In the big spots, they've come up short. This is their opportunity to rewrite that narrative.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I'm looking forward to Game 4. We'll see if the Oilers can get it turned around. Then we got the quick turnaround. We're off to Edmonton for Game 5. So who knows? Maybe the cup will be in tow, depending on how things play out. But listen, Weeksy, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. It was awesome. I'll see you tomorrow night. We'll be there to call game number 4 for the international feed. If you're overseas, tune in. And,
yeah, exactly.
But thanks again. And listen, put that money away. People want to grab that money.
Yeah, my parents probably saw that. I got to send a little more money back home to Toronto.
Yeah. See?
Let me put that away. Let me put that back away.
Yeah,
I did. I exposed my hand. I played my hand.
You did.
Let me try to be a little covert now.
Yeah.
So fade out of the frame.
Listen, if you're going that way, I'll go that way. All right.
All
right. Kevin Weeks, the one and only. Thanks so much for the time today, buddy.
Anytime, brother.
We'll talk to you again. That's been the Toronto Sports Rush right here on the Bet Rivers Network.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.